and welcome to the Artificially Intelligent Podcast, where a white cracker comedian, that's me, living in the flyover state of Iowa, has conversations with his African-American person of color Black friend.
That's me.
That's Barrett Antar Goodwin, the musician in Philadelphia. And today, Barrett, we have a guest.
Yes, I see that.
And we're ganging up on you. Not only are we both white, so take that, Black man. We both live in Iowa. She is an Iowan. Say hello to Sharon Clayton.
How are you, Sharon Clayton?
Hello, thank you very much. It's so nice to be here. I'm just excited about this. Thank you, guys.
Well, this is the first time I'm seeing Sharon's face. I met Sharon, in quotes, air quotes, because she is a book blogger, and I wrote what the kids call a book, if the kids still use hip, cool slang like that. I'm not sure how the kids with their verbiage and their rock and roll music, I don't know. And so I was doing Google searches for book bloggers, and I discovered the Eclectic Review, eclecticreview.com. And I fired off a message like, hey, you're a book blogger and I'm a guy with a book. And so she read my book. She said she enjoyed it. And that was a couple months ago. And then Barrett and I were talking off air, like, it'd be interesting to talk to book bloggers and what they go, because I'm seeing one side of it, how can I get people to read my book? And you see the other side of it, which is, oh my God, all these wannabe authors are contacting me. So let's go back to, I guess, your beginning. What brought you to, like, you obviously enjoyed reading because you wouldn't be a book blogger without it. So you're reading, and what goes off in your head that goes, you know what? I want to write about the book I just read. I want to share my thoughts with the world. Either I really enjoyed this book and I want others to read it, or, oh my God, nobody should ever read this book. I want to tell the world that. What was the step, the jump from personal enjoyment to sharing with the world?
Well, first of all, I wanted to keep track of what books I was reading, because, you know, sometimes I would come across a book and I'm like, this really sounds familiar. I don't know if I read this. So I was writing down books and what they were about and everything, and if I liked them or not. And that got to be really old, writing it down. I put it in a spreadsheet for a while and I'm like, I don't want to do that. And I was getting my bachelor's degree in information and library science. And I took a reader's advisory class, and it was really enlightening, because a reader's advisory is when, like, you go up to a librarian at a public library and say, oh, I really liked this book. Can you find me another book like it? And that's what reader's advisory is. And what they say to librarians is to read a different genre of book each time they read a book, so that they're well-rounded in all of the genres. If someone comes and asks, if I like a science fiction, what do you suggest? If I like a romance, what do you suggest?
Well, not to interrupt, and I apologize, but this is the way this goes, because it's how my brain works. When someone comes to you and says, I'd like a science fiction book, how fast do you clamp down before you say nerd? I mean, do you recommend a book, or do you just say nerd first?
No, okay. Never nerd. We're all nerds. I'm a book nerd, and I admit it. So, but when we were talking about reader's advisory, they had us read different genres of books that I hadn't read before. And one of them was a graphic novel, which I'd never read before. And it's called The Runaways. And it was really, really good. I don't know if you want the details, but
no, it's as far if I can remember it was that the runaway, she was a runaway, and it was based on the Bon Jovi song.
No, it was, I know you don't like Bon Jovi. I did see that on a podcast. So anyway, it's about these young, I think they're junior high or high school kids that are friends. They find out that their parents are supervillains. And so they have superpowers. And so the kids find ways to stop their parents from doing the villainous thing. So it was a really, really great series. There's lots of them, lots of those books. And they actually made it into a series on Netflix, I believe. So of course that's not as good as the book, but anyway, I digress. But anyway, so reading the different genres really, really interested me. So I thought, I'd heard about blogs and all of that. So I thought I'd try it. And it's really difficult to set up a blog if you don't know like the coding and stuff, because some of them, like I use WordPress, and there's lots to it. I mean, there's lots of bells and whistles on it. So basically my blog is just book reviews, and I don't do all the talking, and some people put other stuff on their blogs. Mine's just book reviews, and that's it. I don't have the time to do the other stuff. So go ahead.
Do you find that you enjoy writing as much as you enjoy reading?
I do. I've always liked to write. English was my favorite subject, of course. And I like to
and spoiler, she does work at the library now at a university, so she maintained the
I work at an academic library, yes.
Yeah.
I'm not a librarian. People think I'm a librarian, but I'm not. I'm the assistant to the director. So
before we go off on too many tangents, I don't so the leap from reading to writing, we were right on the cusp of how your blog is books only, but what made you had a spreadsheet, and do you remember the day where you're like, I'm going to write about this book?
I wanted to have more information about the book that I could just put on a blog and just leave it there. And if I ever needed to look up if I've ever seen this book before, or if I get to like a book 2 of a series, I can go back to that blog and find it. That was easier for me to do. But what I found out was it's a lot of work to create a blog. It's a lot of work. And so what happens is, when I first started in 2009, I think was when I first started. So I've been doing this for almost 13 years, which I can't believe. I mean, I didn't do it like straight through. I didn't do a lot of reviews for certain years because I got busy and all of that. I was taking classes and all that. But lately it's gone up quite a bit. I've got more views and all of that stuff. So what happened was I needed to figure out how to contact the publishers and contact these other places to find out if they allow people to do book reviews for them. So I would just go on the internet and I would just search.
See, I would not have thought that. I would have thought that I bought your book. Fuck you. I'm writing my opinion no matter what. You're a publisher. You can't say, you can't review this book. You have no, I would have been too, I guess, arrogant is the word, or just not, it wouldn't have crossed my mind to seek permission to give my thoughts on a piece of art, music, painting, poetry.
Well, they have like marketing companies and stuff that actually send out the ARCs to people, which are advanced readers copies. So you actually get free books to read. That's another plus on my but it's guaranteed that you will review the book no matter if you got it free or not. I mean, it's going to be good or bad, whatever. So I started doing that, and then I started putting my name on other places that listed my blog as a book review blog. And I think you found it somewhere when you found me.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I found it at Google, but I couldn't tell you.
Okay.
I probably I try and like do radiuses. So I might have searched for Iowa book reviews, something like that. Because I believe that's how I introduced myself, as, hey, your biography says I'm an Iowan. So I was like, hey, fellow Iowan, I live, here. How about, would you read a book by a fellow, state person?
So what I did is I started doing this for other people, and for other book tour hosts. And there are things called book tour hosts. And what they do is they advertise their services for authors to market their books. And what they do is they send out ARCs to certain readers that belong to that book tour group. And then they do blog tours is what they call them, or book blitzes or whatever on a certain date. So it got to the point where I was getting emails from all these blog tour hosts. So I'm probably a member of like maybe 6 or 7 of them now. So I'm constantly getting those, and they have lots and lots of books you can review. I also get from authors like you that went to my blog and email me that way. In fact, I get so many now that it's just crazy. It's just,
well, that's where we're going to go is
yeah.
Barrett and I were talking about that a while ago off air, just talking as friends. And I kept a spreadsheet of, the blog I found and if I contacted them and when, and if they responded. And I'm just going to make this up, but it wouldn't be outrageous to say that I sent out 400 plus emails and got ignored 90% of the time. 8% of the time I did get a response. It was a fuck you. And then, 2% of the time they said, oh yeah, I'll read it. And so one of the questions was, especially given how many non-responses I got, how overwhelmed, like how many me's are there out there saying, hey, I wrote a book, will you read it? Like, and not that you want to give this secret away, what makes an email stand out to you?
Well, I probably get about, I'm trying to think, maybe about 3 to 5 requests from authors directly a day. I mean, it's gone up quite a bit.
Yeah. And you can't read 3 to 5 books a day. So yeah, that's, 5, 10, 15,
So,
20 a week, you're turning a lot down. Or
yeah, but I do read each of the emails, and I try, some of them are well written, some of the emails, and some of them are not. But you were really specific on what yours was about, and that you were from Iowa, which that caught my attention as well. And and that you were a comedian, which I thought that's different, something different. I try to find things that are going to interest me, something that just catches my eye. And so that's what I liked. I thought that was interesting that you were doing a thriller. You're a comedian and you're writing a thriller, which I thought that was really cool. So I responded, and I do try to respond to all of the emails, but I don't right away because I have so many emails that I have to go through. I'm also friends with a lot of authors now, and I'm on there. They have Facebook groups, they have Instagram, they have Twitter, and I'm doing all of that stuff as well, which takes a lot of time. And so if something just catches my eye about the book, if there's something different that I've never read before in a certain genre, that's, that one is a good one. But yeah, I probably get about maybe 3 to 5 a day from actual authors that go to my blog and email me.
And this is on top of your regular, like you said, the
my blog tours. Yeah. So go ahead, Anton.
Well, as if I were an author and I wanted to get in on one of these blog tours or have my book be represented or book blitzes, how would I go about doing such a thing?
Usually money.
Right. Yes, who do I have to pay off?
Well, I have links to all of my blog tours on my blog. So I put all of the links to them on there. So anybody can go there and ask. You know, they can go to those blog tour hosts and ask, because they all have different like packages you can have. Like some of them, you can just do a booklet.
You say have or buy.
Yeah, pretty much. Yes. But what is interesting is I've met so many different tour hosts from other countries. I've got like 2 ladies from Britain that I do a lot of their blog tour. And then there's, you know, I've met authors from like South Africa and Ireland, and it's just, it's amazing. It's amazing, the books out there. I mean, I've
Can
become,
I ask?
Go ahead.
Can I ask you this?
Yeah.
Have you found that these blog tours are effective, or I guess I'll tell you an experience that I talked about a while ago. In that I found a U somewhere, and I again found the blog, just the personal blog, and didn't even think about what you mentioned earlier, Twitter, Instagram, all of those.
Yeah.
But when they reviewed my book very positively and kindly, they tweeted out and tagged me. I'm like, oh shit, I didn't even think of Twitter. So how do I put this? I found the blog and they reviewed my book, and suddenly just a ton of comments on the blog, like, oh, this book sounds great. This sounds like a book I want to read. Oh my goodness, this book sounds fantastic. This is right up my alley. And I noticed a lot of them were book bloggers. So me being a stalker, I started taking note of who they were, and I reached out to them. I was like, hey, I noticed that you said you found this blog interesting regarding my book. I'd love to send you a free copy. And it was still 90% ignore, 9 more cent no, and then like 1% yes, which I found fascinating. Like, here you are putting, and I realized that a lot of it was, and I don't count you in this because I didn't know you were part of it, but it was like a blogger circle jerk where all these bloggers praised one another's blogs, but they didn't really have any interest other than like, you put a comment on my blog, so I'm going to put one on yours. And so getting back to my original question, like, do you find these to be successful, or is it a lot of you pay someone for a package and they send it to all these bloggers who then it's very insular? Like, how does it break out to the public, I guess would be my question.
Yeah, I think, you know, there's some blog tour hosts that do ask that you comment on other bloggers blogs when you do these. Now, I don't have time to do it, so unfortunately I don't do it. So but the thing is that I know that there are a few new authors that I've read that have they've just gone crazy on like Instagram and Twitter and all that with their books and on Amazon. So I'm not sure what else they're doing. I know that they have a Facebook group and they're sending like ARCs out to their Facebook group followers as well. So they're doing other things like that. And I think that's helping, but I don't know exactly what all they're doing. And I know that some authors, my gosh, there's a couple of them that I read, and they've written, I don't know how many books this year. I mean, they've written about 5 books this year, and it's just like crazy. And
are you allowed to, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I know some, like, I had right now, I might hopefully write another book, but I'm a stand-up comedian by trade and at heart. And so I know a couple people that said, hey, you need to do this. You need to start pumping out content. You need to, and there's no nice way of saying this. I looked at some of the content and I'm like, this is just shit. It's like, there are comedians that they're famous that it's really hard to get an hour of really solid comedic material. And so, and this is the same with musicians. We've talked about this, where you put out that first comedy special, or you put out your first record album as a musician, and then it's time for the second one, but you had 5 years to develop that first hour, or you had 10 years of struggling as a garage band, and that first album, I'll throw her under the bus because she's a multi-millionaire and won't care. But Melissa Etheridge is someone who's her first album was great. Her second one was really good. Third one, fourth. I mean, they just diminishing returns. And there are a lot of bands like that where, you know, you just pump it out too fast. So when you say that there are, and I've read some of these authors where I like getting back to where it started. I look at some of the content and it's like, not only do I not find the content decent, but I see a lot of just errors where I'm reading it and I'm like, you aren't taking the time to you know, have an editor look this over, or and it just becomes a content machine, which is sort of like a vomitorium. And so when they were saying you need to do this, I'm like, I just have this one thing that I think is good that I'm trying to, you know, this could be my cherry pie. So Warrant, great, one song, that's it, I'm done. Whatever one hit wonder, I'm fine with that. But at least in my mind, and I have an ego, at least it's good. And if I don't do another one, so be it. But so yeah, I get the content machine, but I just not sure what the quality is behind it.
I have to agree with you that some people that have written like several books and are fast at publishing them, the later ones aren't as good. I mean, and it's like repetitive. They're doing the same thing. But I have read some authors, and their content is amazing. Their writing skills are just awesome. I mean, you know the good ones from the bad ones. You just know, because just the way their wording flows and everything. It's totally different.
Who are your favorites? Even out of the classics, who are your favorite authors?
I was a big To Kill a Mockingbird fan, and
Did you like the second book though? Did you like the book that came out most recently?
I didn't.
I've heard that many people said that they didn't like it.
Was the second book, did that come out like 20 years later, or am I thinking something different?
Quite a way.
It came out like a handful of years ago.
Yeah, it was like suddenly out of the blue, like, oh, Harper wrote it. Like, okay, it was quite a distance between the two books.
Well, another one like that was Gone with the Wind, and then someone wrote, and I don't know if it was that author, but someone else wrote another book.
I was gonna say, I think someone else wrote the sequel,
and it was bad. It was really bad.
What about since we're shitting on people, have you ever forced yourself to finish a book? And the reason I ask is,
yes,
I only did it once, and when I was done, I said I'm never going to do it again. And this is when Barrett and I were roommates in college. No, this is when we were in the dorm, because we would go to the girls' college and try and meet girls. And I don't, Barrett, do you remember their names? There were a couple of girls that were really into Ayn Rand. And so they gave me a copy of The Fountainhead, and I started reading it, and I started hating it near me. Like, what is this shit? And I get to the scene where I think Howard Rourke I think he rapes her, and she's like, oh, he's so powerful. I'm like, he raped you. And it's like, if the man, and I would read a page and get so disgusted, I would put it up and said, I'm going to read this book so that I can say I read it. And then once I was done, I was so angry, I said, I'm never forcing myself to read another book again. And yeah, I don't think we ever hooked up with them, but just the idea that they were really into Ayn Rand, I found.
Oh, I tell you, a book that I really liked, that I read it back in the 90s and is now very popular, is Outlander by Diana Gabaldon. And that now you have the Outlander series on, like, I think it's on Stars or something, which is really big because it's a historical book, and it's also a time travel, and it's also a romance. So you got all that together. And you know what? My husband loves that series. He loves watching that series because it's got a great historical content in it.
I'm sorry. I'm listening, but I'm not paying attention, because all I heard was, Nathan, maybe in 20 years, your book will be something. That's what I heard. You said it was from the 90s and it's a thing now. So I started hearing like, yeah, just give your book 20 years and maybe someone will find it.
Well, you know,
Well-
I did let people know at work about your book, and they're
Oh.
really interested in it. So
Well, you
yeah.
also blogged about it, so that you let the world know about my book, and that's
Well,
one of the
and
reasons.
I did request your book for our library, so it'll be in the academic library.
Oh,
Really?
how fun.
Just to let you know.
What an interesting place for my book to be.
Indeed.
Academic library. Well, thank you
That's
for that.
awesome.
Sure.
That's awesome. Now, you said something that made me think of writing styles. Do you find that it's kind of a leap, but I'm curious? Because Netflix studies everything that we do, everything that we watch, them, Amazon, all they study, they aggregate, they have more information about our watching habits. And the TV shows just get better and better and better and better. And they hook you. And Netflix has a bunch of stuff that I'm like, I could give two fucks about this stuff. But the stuff that they have that I like, it's like, oh, it just grabs me, you know?
Mhm.
Now, do you find that authors now, having grown up on television instead of books, do you find there to be a big difference between books that were written by authors who, let's say, books that came out in the 80s and 90s versus books that came out now? Because in the 80s and 90s, those people grew up reading books.
Yep.
And now we grew up watching television. And if so, how has Netflix, and have you seen a shift yet in books by young authors who grew up with just the ability to keep suspense going? Like, you know, like that 24 thing, like 24 started it. And now every TV show at the end of it, you're like, oh, okay, I'll just watch the next 5 minutes. I'll watch the first 5 minutes of the next one.
I make
Yeah.
a lot of jokes, but I would like to interrupt and say that's a fascinating goddamn question, and I look forward to the answer.
Yeah. You know,
Not even joking. I never. That is a fascinating goddamn question.
Books have really changed over the years, because I've been reading them for a long time.
Right.
And especially I'm a big romance fan now. There's a stigma about romance readers, but
Oh, Danielle Steele, man, that's my
oh
girl.
yeah, oh no, sorry, no. But they are really very graphic anymore, with the sex and everything else. And in fact, there's things I never knew about in some of them. They have like,
Well, they're educational. That's why
Well,
you
they
have
have,
them in the
like,
academic library.
we don't have romance books in the academic library, unfortunately, but they have like reverse harems, which is sort of a crazy way of describing women that are with a bunch of men, with like 4 men or something. They call them reverse harems. So I don't know why they call them that, but they have that. They have like age gaps. The age gap ones are crazy.
I will, to this day, I watched it. I will never understand Harold and Maude. I'm sorry. I never, the idea that it's a classic and people love it, I'm like, over my head.
You know, people have their favorites, and there's a lot of women that have their favorites, and it's not usually younger women today like the age gap thing. They like the much older man than the woman.
So you're saying I should get divorced? Interesting. I love my wife, but I suppose, I mean,
some people are fine with those. I'm not a big fan of them. So when someone asks me, I say, no, I'll just turn it down because that's just not, I just don't want to read about it. But they also have women that are older than the men. So they call that reverse age gap, which I don't understand that at all. But
that's called fantasy.
So it's like, that's just gone crazy, because you have Facebook groups of women that like these certain kinds of genres and these tropes, what they call them, like enemies to lovers, friends to lovers, second chances, that kind of thing. And they've just gone crazy in the Facebook groups. There's tons of them on Facebook, and I've been on some of them, and they're just crazy. And it's just gone over the top. It's got to the point where some of them, the content is just not that good. You know, it's all the same stuff. And it's the same with other kinds of books. I mean, it's hard to find books that are gonna, you know, wow me. And I've read a lot of books about, like, young adult books are really awesome books. They have a lot of very serious topics in them, like rape or mental illness or like abandonment, things like that, that are just really good. I've read a lot of those lately. But to find a catch on these kind of books, they got to find something that's just gonna wow somebody or catch someone's attention. And I read a book, and I can't remember the name of it, but it was about a boy that had a brain tumor, and I believe he was in either junior high or high school, but he had a brain tumor, and his parents wanted him to take him out of school, and he didn't want to be taken out of school. He still wanted to be in school with his friends, and so he was very popular in school, and they did drone wars, which I'd never heard about. So I learned a lot about drone wars. I don't know if you've ever heard of those.
No, but I'm
Pretty
trying
awesome.
to make an educated guess in my brain that it's like they get drones and have them.
They do races and stuff with drones. It was really cool. I guess they have those on cable too, I guess. I've never seen them before, but he was slowly getting worse and getting sicker, and he was a minor, so he couldn't choose to end his
Euthanasia?
life. Yeah, he couldn't choose that. It was up to his parents. And so it was talking about that, and it was talking about they need to talk to kids more about this kind of stuff. If someone has a brain tumor, what options do they have? How do you talk to these kids? Because a lot of the kids wouldn't talk to him anymore. His friends like ignored him and stuff. And he just wanted to tell people how he was feeling and everything. And it was such a good book. It was such a good book. And so that one was it's those kind of books that are just, you'll always remember them, because it was just
not the title.
I knew I was going to do this. I needed to write it down and put it in front of me. But
well, I have a sideways question that
okay.
gets out of the content, because you said something that took a while to digest, and then I came up with this question. It's not deep. Don't worry. When I said digest, I just needed I hear something and my brain goes, hey, there's something going on there. There's something going on there. There's something. Oh, boom. And then it comes out. When did you say you became a book blogger?
2009.
9. Okay. Have you noticed during your tenure, I don't know how much you interact with your peers, like I said, with the turnover rate, because when I stumbled across a list somewhere. And so when I would click, and, a lot of it's nice because they say, I read romance. I'm like, good. I don't have to email that person, because they make it very nice and clear. But I found a ton where the last entry would be 2017. I'm like, all right, I don't need to email them, because they obviously they aren't doing it anymore.
Right.
Do you think it's burnout, or people going all excited, like, I'm going to start a book blog, and then they just stop? Have you noticed, because obviously you have been around, you are an elder statesman, and I didn't know that it's been that long, but I have seen so many that are just, done, one and done. But they're still, because it's the internet, they're still out there. You can still find them.
Yeah.
They're not.
I think it's burnout, or it's just life. Yeah. I think they just get busy with their lives and the kids and everything.
And then what keeps you going? I mean, is it an ability to? I was just going to say something, but I won't try and fashion an answer for you. I'll just let you answer.
Okay. Well, what I think it's because, I have time to read. And so, and I have to admit that
I hope your employer's not watching this. Oh, you have time to read, do you?
I read every night. And at lunchtime. So I'm reading all the time. I'm one of those people that carry around their Kindle with them everywhere they go. And if I have if I go to the doctor's office, I'll read my book, that kind of thing. But I have to admit that I was one of those people that stopped doing this for a while because I was taking classes, and I can't study books and then read for fun because it was just too much for me. So there was a time when between 2009 and now where I didn't really post a lot of stuff. So
what called you back to it? Like once you had stopped, you made a clean break. You had a nice convenient excuse. You didn't have to go back. What brought you back?
Well, I got my degree, and then I started looking at, I think I went to the library and I was looking at some books, and then I thought, well, why don't I just go back to my blog and start doing this again. And I started getting emails from these blog tour hosts that I never met before. And I'd read a lot of I'm a big fan of British authors. I mean, in a lot of the different genres. And it just expanded from there because I started reading all different, there was a J.F. Kerwin who wrote a trilogy, and it's just awesome espionage stuff. I mean, it was it's so engrossing and so action-packed from the very beginning to the end, with this badass heroine who she reminded me of the girl from
The Dragon Tattoo.
Yes, that one. Sorry. She reminded me a lot of that, and I loved that trilogy as well. But there's a lot of people that didn't like that trilogy.
Who didn't like that trilogy? I burned through those books.
Oh, I've talked to like some other people that I know, and they didn't like it, and I'm like, oh God.
I think the only thing I didn't like about those books, and I remember reading it at the time that stuck with me, is the author, whenever he brought up Hotmail way too often.
Oh, yeah.
It was just like, I'll open a Hotmail account. Well, then I emailed his Hotmail account. Well, then my Hotmail account was like, Jesus Christ, why is it always? There was just something about Hotmail that just kept coming up where I'm like, you could just say email. You don't have to say Hotmail every time, or you could just say email me. Or I mean, it was just I remember that was a sticking point in the books where it was nonstop mention of Hotmail.
Like he was getting a stock in the company.
Oh, like I was like it was a paid endorsement. That's what I do remember, is that it was just nonstop.
Well, another thing I've noticed is there's so many books with series. So I mean, and they end in cliffhangers, and see, I'm not.
I was told that mine should be a series. One of the people I said is you need to write a series.
I said that.
I know, but then this was before it was getting out there, and then people saying, "I want to see more from the FBI agents." Oh shit! I need to cut that out. If you didn't read the book, I'm actually going to edit that because I don't want to give anything out.
Okay.
I'm going to go in and edit. I rarely edit this podcast, but I am going to edit that out.
No, but it's just like crazy anymore, and where they have like 10, 11, 12 books in the series, and it's like, especially if they carry on the whole couple thing throughout the thing, I just don't want to read that many books about it. Come on.
My,
also really? Unrealistic.
No, realistic. But did you ever watch the Dennis Leary show Rescue Me?
Yes.
And did you watch the entire series?
Yes, I did.
I gave up on it because somewhere around, what was it, season 4 or 5, where it's like, okay, we get it with the Janet and the whatever triangle. Like the first season was so, but what you just said, it was the same love triangle 5 seasons in. I'm like, okay, I'm done. I get it. He and his wife don't get along, or it got to be, yes. The first few seasons were fantastic, but by the end it was the same fucking relationship shit, and I just couldn't take it anymore, and I stopped. I just stopped.
I mean, I think that's what's changed a lot with books now is there's a lot of series, there's a lot of duets is where they have this cliffhanger at the end of the first book, and then you have to buy the second book
Yeah.
to find out what happens. And see, I'm not a big fan of that. I don't.
Anybody listening that has not read my book, I put a bow on the end. It's a nicely neat package. It ends. You only have to buy one book. That's it. And then you walk away. No cliffhanger.
I could stand to see the two of them come back. So I could stand to see
I can too. I'm with you, Antar. Yes, I agree.
I mean, I'd be all right with that. You know, I do find though, like I wonder because as a young person, books really changed my life.
Yeah.
And there's different points in my life when I've decided I needed to be smarter. I've said, you know what, like, I feel like I've been recycling this information for far too long. I need to put more information in. And I go and I find a book, I read some James Baldwin book. I read some book, some young book, or just something that is just like above my pay grade, intellectually. And I go through it, and by the second or third time, it makes sense. Do you know what I mean? Like I've started to assimilate the information a little bit, and I find that the ability to do that is really fascinating. I find very few modern books hold up to that.
Yeah.
Have you read any stuff like Jordan Peterson's books? Have you read any of these modern day philosopher books?
I haven't.
Okay. I'd just be curious
you need to send some titles to me, and I'll take a look.
I would be curious to see how you would think they rank up against the originals, because in certain ways, like you see these things with these extended love triangles, and partially that's a marketing ploy, right? Like these cliffhangers are like every movie now you see it and you're like, oh, right, this is going to be a trilogy because that's just the new thing, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, every book is a 3-part series so they can make movies out of it. Like everybody's pre-planning their art before they even get to the drawing board. They've already figured out the art's arc of success before they put the pen to the paper. It's absurd.
If it's done well, I would be fine with that, because what you just made me think of is the Hunger Games. I remember reading the Hunger Games, and I found the first book quite enjoyable. I remember finishing and going, wow, that was a neat little book. And then someone said, there's a second one. I'm like, really? It seemed like it finished it. All right. So I read it. I'm like, well, that was kind of crappy. And then they said, oh, there's a third book. I'm like, really? And so I read it and I said, that was complete garbage. And so it seemed to me, and I could be wrong, I remember reading the first one going, it seems like they read Battle Royale from Japan and said, I can do that. It seemed, and then finding it, like, I didn't do that. Like, yeah, you fucking did. It was a rip off, but it was fine. It was done well. But then it seemed like, and this is just the impression I got, holy shit, this first book is really a success. It needs a sequel. Like, it did not seem planned out. I think I've read interviews where she said, no, it was definitely planned. I'm like, well, then it wasn't well planned, because 2 and 3 seemed not as well written, not as compelling. It just seemed like law of diminishing returns, like we talked about earlier.
Well, I have to agree with you that, some books are just great. The first book, that's where it should have stopped, because that book just made a difference for a lot of people. Because, there's a lot of books like that. And then they go off and make a sequel to it. And it's not the same. It's not the same. There's very rarely any books that I know of that each of those books are as good as the first. I mean, it's the same with movies,
Sometimes,
the
newest Spider-Man is absolutely the best of the current trilogy.
Really? Oh, awesome.
Yeah,
you get to see it, Barrett? It's so good. I took my kids today. I saw it Thursday opening night, and then I took them.
Did the same people write them?
That I don't know, but this one is, I will just say without any spoilers, much more emotionally mature. Like, the first 2 were fun. This one is, for lack of a better word, real. You're still talking about a guy that got bit by a spider and has superpowers, but it's it's more Newton. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. So it's not just like, I'm a superhero, I'm going through life. And that's sort of what you got from the first couple, is like, this one has like, look, life has consequences. And it harkens back to I won't say anymore, but I could not enjoy this one more. It's just fantastic.
Wow.
It's
that's good.
for a trilogy. They're peaking on number 3.
Awesome.
Okay.
Well, that's good.
Well, that's good to know.
And it's the exact opposite of going, not to keep shitting on the Hunger Games, but again, she's a multimillionaire. What does she care about this guy sitting in his basement? The Hollywood version, where they took book 3 was razor thin, and yet they decided, ooh, we need 2 movies to tell this story. It's like, no, you don't. And the exact same with The Hobbit. Like, we need 3 movies. No, you don't.
No.
All right. What did you think of the Harry Potter series?
Are you talking about me?
Either of you.
I think, do you know my opinion? I have a joke about it where
I see. I'm not a big Harry Potter fan.
I absolutely love them.
I never could get into the book. I tried several times to get into it and I couldn't.
Just the first one?
Yeah.
Okay, so the first one is easily the worst because it's written for kids.
Yeah.
And so it's like she literally grew the series with kids. So if you picked up that book at age 10 and read it, by the time the next one, the final one was out, you were 18 or 20 or something like this. So she maintained your reading level. I remember I read the first 3 books in the course of a week over Christmas break. I was at my mom's, and obviously book 3 was already out. And my mom said, you should pick this up. And so I read the first book. I'm like, it was fine. It's a little cheesy and it's a little whatever. And then I read the second book. I'm like, what? That's actually not too bad. And then you read the third book and you're like, it matures with you. So if you can pick up and get through the first book, I guarantee that series just gets better because she begins writing more emotionally intelligent and mature. The characters grow and develop, but I can see not getting through the first book because the first one is fluff and it's written for 10-year-olds.
Well,
once you get past it,
I also heard that the audiobooks are really good.
I've heard that as well.
So, and then, that's a big difference because I listened to Game of Thrones on audiobook. Which I really liked. Now I don't know if you've read that one.
I've not seen the HBO series either.
Well, the series isn't the same as reading.
Yeah.
Anyway, but those were really good books in audio, I thought. And actually the Outlander series is wonderful in audiobook form because the woman that narrates it, she does the accents just perfectly. So you understand how like some of the Scottish words were pronounced because you read it and you have no idea. It's like, how do you pronounce that? And she does it so well. So I suggest that for the audiobooks. But audiobooks are big thing now. So, and congratulations, by the way, Nathan. I heard that your
well, it's still in processing. I'm wondering how long this processing, because every time I click, it says, still processing, give it a couple days. I'm like, I'm getting ready to fire off an email saying, how long are you going to be processing? Because it's been, it said it up to a month before it hits like Apple and Amazon or Audible and all that. So I'm not impatient, but when I go to its website, I'd like to see it clear. You're being sent to these distribution.
Yeah. Well, I looked on Amazon at your book and you're doing really well. You've got 5 stars and
people seem to like it, which makes me
really
happy.
Well. So
it's what did I say that about earlier? Thank you very much. I can't remember what I said it about, but it was off air before we were talking. I said that we don't have a big podcast, but the people that do find us tend to like us. It's the same with my book. It's like I don't have big sales, but the people that do stumble across it, they tend to really like it, which makes me very happy.
Yeah.
That's good stuff.
Another author I like is Neil Gaiman. I don't know if you've read any of his American Gods, any of that. I really like his books as well. And he narrates his books as well, which are really great.
Do you write any fiction type stuff yourself?
Yeah. Have you ever translated? Have you ever gone like, what? I've been writing about it or
No, I don't want to go there.
Is it
I'd rather read and review and that's it. So
all right. I was just going to ask, does it have to do with and I'm not asking this in any other way than to ask, so please don't take this the wrong way. Is it fear? Is it a lack of an idea? Like I just don't have any idea that I want to write down, or I'm afraid to put myself out there, or is it just like you said, you just no interest.
No, when I was a kid, I wrote little stories and stuff for my mom and stuff. I like doing that. But I would rather sometimes it takes me a while to just do a review on a book.
Mhm.
You'd rather
Because-
sit in judgment. I lord over you, author.
Yeah. Yeah. But it sometimes just trying to figure out the words how I want to describe this book, and sometimes it's really difficult for some of the books that just didn't resonate with me. It's hard to give a review, and I don't give really bad reviews on my blog. I don't do the star system, like the 5 stars. I don't do that on my blog because I don't find it necessary. I mean,
has there been a book, and obviously you don't have to name it, but are there books where after you read it and you thought you were going to review it, but it was just so, I don't want to say bad, but you just said, you know what, I'm not going to do this to this author. I'll just sort of let it slide where I don't need to put that negativity out there. I'll just leave it alone.
well, yes,
Or
I
do you,
have.
or do you honestly just like, all right, this book sucked, I'm putting it out there?
I've actually done that. I've just not reviewed it for them. If it was an author that had asked me to do it, I will let them know that I wasn't going to post it on there. And I explained what was, what I didn't find satisfying for me. And so, but yeah, I don't like to, there's some people that are really scathing to author. I mean, they're just awful and say such terrible things. And I just don't feel like that's necessary. I don't,
Well, that brings a follow-up question. Do you find the authors appreciate your candor, or do they still, because if they're putting themselves out there, they have an investment, and you're going to have hurt feelings like, shit, I put a lot of effort into this person didn't like it. So you could get either a, wow, I really appreciate you doing this for me, or you could still get lashback, which is, hey, my book's great, what's wrong with you? Like, have you found both sides, or what has been the general response?
No.
Or do they just not even write back, like, all right, delete?
I actually had a man, an author, ask me what I liked about the book and what I didn't like about the book, and he wanted to get into more detail, so he would email me and ask me, and then when he was writing another book, and he wanted me to read it and tell him what he thought about it. This is before he had it published, so he wanted me to give him my opinion of what I thought about it. So, and he was very grateful for it, and he just thought it was great that I would do this for him, that take the time to do it. So
yeah. Well, that's nice.
I was willing to do that. And he was just very nice about it. And then he sent me the arc for it. And then, so.
Was it better than the first one?
Well, it was edited. So, because when, when it's not edited, it's hard. And, when you read art.
How tough is that?
That's
getting books that are full of errors.
Oh yeah. And it's hard sometimes. And I know some people will say something about the errors, but I don't, because it is an arc. It's not the finished product yet.
Mhm.
So I don't say anything about like the grammar, spelling was wrong or anything like that. So I look.
Do you think that does them a disservice though? Or do you put it in anything where you say, boy, I've really found this book interesting. I got an advance copy. Once they fix these issues, like, because otherwise, I mean, it could be harmful if it's not mentioned. If they don't get the feedback, it could go out into the world chock full of problems.
I think if they get the feedback in an email is better than actually
privately
review.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that would work. And some of them have separate editors to deal with that. And I know that some bloggers probably do email them and let them know. And I know I got an arc one time that actually asked people to send an email to the author if they found errors in it. So yeah, there's different ways of doing it.
Have you
Um,
ever you ever decided to just mess with an author? Like, hey, what would you look for in my next book? More anti-Semitism. Okay, that's what the people want. And then the book comes out and they're hated and you know, getting all this like, what a horrible book. It's full of anti-Semitic tropes. You're like, I did that.
I read a book. It was about a man that he was upset about some of the things that people did that affected his family, like his medical bills for his wife were going up, and so his wife died because they couldn't afford the medical bill. So he decided that he's going to go out and get revenge on these drug companies and stuff like that. And the name of the book was called The Fuck It List, and it was a really good book. It's a really good book. And so there were several different people that he was mad at, and so it described how he found them and how he went across the country and was trying to find these people to get his revenge. And there's a detective that followed him. And so it was a really good book. I really suggest reading that. I think you'd like it. So, yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah.
That's funny.
See, like titles of books sometimes get your attention like that. I mean, I read a book called Assholes, the Theory. I mean, come on, you can't you can't pass up a book like that. Come on.
Especially a romance novel.
No, that's not a romance novel.
I read a book. I can't think of the title, but it was sort of it was a play on "Don't Sweat the Small Stuff; It's All Small Stuff." It was a book like "How to Say Fuck It,"
Yeah.
and that was the title. Not that, but I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember. But it had "fuck" in it. It was like how to say "fuck it" and blow things off, or not to worry about. But do you find with any of those books,
the subtle art of not giving a fuck?
is that it? I don't know, because the book, either way, I read it and I'm not sure if I finished, because honestly, by page 50, it had become redundant. It was like, okay, I get it. You bust your nut in the first chapter, and then it just was over and over. So just say fuck it. Yeah, so fuck it. So, and I'm like, okay, I get it. You're using fuck it. Like, it caught your eye as the title.
Yeah.
But it's sort of like that book that Sam Jackson narrated that was really popular a couple of Go to Fuck to Sleep, which was, I really thought that would have been better if Go the Fuck to Sleep had been the last page.
Well, yeah.
Because it would have built to it. But when I got it, otherwise it was just like, you're tired, so go the fuck to sleep. You're still awake, go the fuck to sleep. And I'm like, okay, I get it. And do you find that with any of those books that have have you read any self-help books? I guess that's the category I just put it in, or teach educational books with that twist, but then just sort of run dry because it was a really neat premise, but didn't have any follow through.
I'm trying to think. Well, we got to talking about that. We're talking about titles. I got a book called Please Don't Do Coke in the Bathroom.
I'm trying to take a shit here. I just saw an Onion article that I think was the reverse. It was like, no, it was an Onion article talking about how they wanted to sign a petition to keep people from taking a shit while I'm trying to do blow in the bathroom. And it's like, every time I go into the bathroom to do a line of Coke, some asshole's in here taking a shit. Can we, Anyway, sorry, I interrupted, but that's what you made me think of.
It was a book that it was like calligraphy for things you want to tell people that, like, please don't do Coke in the bathroom. If you want to like write a really pretty sign that said that in your bathroom, you could post it, and it had those kinds of phrases in it. So like fuck you, or that kind of thing. But it was
written
all
very nicely. Yeah.
So,
as opposed to Caligula, who, enjoyed the orgies.
Yes.
All right. Well, was there anything that we didn't touch upon that you'd like to share regarding your experiences as a reader and blogger?
It's a lot, like, I just want to say it's a lot of work, but it's very satisfying when you hear from the authors and they follow you on your blog or they follow you on Instagram, and they always comment. That's very humbling and very nice to hear. So,
And a very subtle message to me, who didn't know you had an Instagram. So I didn't. I didn't know you, so I don't. I suppose I should follow you on Instagram.
No. So, but yeah, it's, there's all, like I said, I'm on my blog and I post on Twitter and Instagram, and I do that just to, for the blog tours mostly, because they want to send that stuff out. But I've had to learn to use like Photoshop to make my images look right and all of that. So I've learned a lot from just doing that. I've learned a lot about how to create a blog and how to deal with the appearance and all of that. So it's like I said, it's a lot of work, but it's very it's nice to be able to get that information out for people that, pour their heart and soul in some of their books. So,
All right.
How often do you find yourself referring back to your own blogs to figure out whether or not you should read something again or look at a series, or remember, oh, right, this is what happened in book 2, or, oh, right, I remember I wanted to read book 2. How often do you find yourself going back to your own blogs?
Oh, I have to do that all the time.
Okay.
Because
That's funny.
they will send a list of books that they want us to review, and I'm like, okay, so which book number is this? And I have to go back and figure out what happened, because I have to have a calendar of the books that I'm going to read and review to keep up on all these dates that I have to post these. See, so I mean, there's a book I just read. I just read book 2, and I read the first book like last year. So I had to go back and.
So it started with a spreadsheet and it's sort of ending with a spreadsheet.
I use a content management database now, which is more robust. So it's crazy, because I'm like, right now I'm like 3 months behind in trying to find spots to review books. So I'm like 3 months out. Like March, I think, is the soonest I can review anybody's book right now. So it's crazy. It's crazy.
Because you took tonight off from reading. April, take that, authors. We ruined your timeline. Well, thank you so much for everything, for opening my email, for reading my email, accepting my book, reading my book. I can't thank you for enjoying it, because you did that on your own. You happen to like it. So thank you for writing your appreciation of my book down. That was very kind of you. And for taking time out of your night to come talk to us.
Yeah, it was really fun.
Thank you so much, guys. This was great. Yeah.
So that is the Eclectic Review, eclecticreview.com. And then toss out your socials that I wasn't familiar with. Is it Eclectic Review on Twitter and Instagram? On
Twitter, it's at Eclectic Review, and on Instagram, it's _Eclectic_Review. And Facebook, it's at Eclectic Review. So
there you go. I will go find you on those.
Okay.
Absolutely. I will too. How fun.
Okay. So thank you, guys. I hope you enjoy some of the books I recommended. So
So Barrett can be found at antargoodwin.com. He is the musical director of the Katie Henry Band. New album coming out January 28th. New single out right now, On My Way. You can Google On My Way on YouTube and find the video. You will see Barrett slapping the bass, as they say in that Paul Rudd movie that I can't think of the name of right now. Can you think of it?
I
can't think of it, but
I love Paul Rudd.
Yeah. Sexiest man alive.
Yes.
And then if you want to go to the Eclectic Review, eclecticreview.com, is there a search bar where they can type "We Are 100" in a search bar to pull up my review?
Yes.
There you go. So
and your name. Both.
Yep.
Yes.
Nathan Timmel. So go to eclecticreview.com, do a search for We Are 100, and you will find all the things Sharon said about my book, We Are 100. And I can be found at nathantimmel.com.
Mhm.
Thanks for watching or listening, depending on how you digested or ingested this vlog or blog audio blog. What is this vlog or podcast? Yeah, I couldn't think of the word podcast because I said vlog, and then I just lost podcast out of my brain. I kept thinking blog. So thank you for the assist. All right, bye everyone.
Bye.
Bye.